right, everybody. We are on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ross, and with me tonight is my good friend, community Vince. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, what's up, Mark?
All right, man. All right. Vince and I are here to discuss the state of affairs in the city that we are in, which is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Vince and I have had one-on-one conversation before about the things that's going on, typical scuttlebutt, if you will. But we tend to have more scuttlebutt as we were meeting up. So he wanted to come on board and have a discussion about the state of affairs, as I said a minute ago, about the city of Milwaukee and the state in which it is in right now. So, Brother Vince, welcome to the show again. And I will let you kick off some of the issues that you have observed and attempting to help alleviate within this. So I'll turn it over to you, brother.
So I don't know if we'll be able to get to both of them, but one of them is I sent you the video, and if you go on either of on my face page, you can find a video with a 5-year-old from WCLL, which is Wisconsin Conservatory School of Lifelong Learning, of a 5-year-old boy who has special needs, was trapped in the bathroom stall and forced to vape. And I'll preface it with this here. When I found out, some teachers came to me and they brought the mother to me, and we talked about it. And the mother actually gave me the video, and I thought it was appalling. So the first day of the, can you hear me, Mark?
I can hear you, brother.
Okay. Yeah. So the first day of the new superintendent, Brenda Casellas, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name right. Found out what school she was at, took the video and showed it to her. She didn't have the type of reaction that I would have thought when seeing a 5-year-old kid been forced to do something like that. Instead, she said she was going to have it investigated. I also took it to the mayor, Carol Johnson's office on several occasions and presented it to the receptionist and, said, make sure that the mayor gets a chance to see this. Both of them thought it was appalling what happened. So I'm sure he got the video. And I also ran into David Crawley a few weeks ago, or last month.
David Crawley, for those that don't know, who's David Crawley?
He's the county executive for Milwaukee. So I ran into him at a community brainstorm meeting where they were talking about building a new courthouse. And I showed him the video, and I was really kind of surprised by his response. He was saying that it was the mother's fault. And if you look at the video with the Channel 4 interview, the mother, says she should not have to fear for the life or safety of her child at an MPS school, and she doesn't feel safe. But the story, it comes along with the story. In last month, I'll start this way. It's over a 3-week period of time. 12 teachers called me and wanted to meet up about this school, WCLL, Wisconsin Conservatory School of Lifelong Learning. And they wanted to talk about the problems that they were having. They didn't feel safe at the school. They don't think the kids are safe at the school. There's kids smoking marijuana at the school. There's fighting at the school on a daily basis. There's in a room where only teachers have access to, the word rape was written on the wall. So I had 12 teachers at my house, and I also had a superintendent, Henry Leonard, came also to listen to these teachers' cries for help, because obviously they're afraid to go down to central office to get some help, because they feel as though there's a connection with their administration at the school and central office, and they can't get anything done, even under these dire situations. So the next week, and what I also did when I did that, Mark, is I contacted all 4 of the news stations. I said, hey, this is what's happening. I did that on a Saturday. So on a Sunday, I called them back and confirmed that they all had received the message that they had, but no response. So the next week, I had 2 teachers and a parent that came by my house and kind of sort of the same story. And one of the teachers, the parent was saying something tragic happened to her son, where he was thrown on the ground and hit his head or something. And then it comes the next week is when this situation occurred with the mother and what happened with her son caught, in vaping in the restrooms. She came to me. I took her down to central office, and we walked her through the process of documenting what happened, and talking to a few people down there. Someone said they couldn't really look at it, so they sent someone down from a Mr. O or Dr. O from the school, WCLL, to kind of go over the situation. He looked at the video and he thought it was absolutely appalling. And the mother felt as though she didn't really get the reaction out of that person that they had sent, and saying that they're going to investigate the situation. Well, needless to say, the following week, we got into Channel 4 News. We took her down there. She did an interview, which you saw the interview where she was talking about what happened to her son. Her face was blocked out, as was her son, because she's afraid of a retaliation.
Yes.
In the coming weeks, I mean, stop me anytime if you have any questions, Mark.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go,
So
go.
in the coming weeks, as a matter of fact, last Friday, she had a scheduled interview with Channel 4 again, and she had called me the day before, and they had scheduled it. The day of, the morning, she evidently had a therapy appointment, and I don't know what happened between that time for her to go meet with the news person and therapy, but eventually she called and canceled out. But she also said that they had changed schools with her students. Now, granted, let's take it, she's afraid that something could happen to her or her kids. So
Right.
evidently they transferred her children to a different school. But before they left, the teachers there were saying that she might want to just stop bringing her kids to school because they were in fear for something possibly happening to them. So they sent sent the kids to a different school. Exactly.
So, Vince, what happened to the kids that made that kid vape?
I don't know exactly what will happen to them. I think that's something that's privileged information, but I think that, the superintendent and the person that came to the meeting said that there were going to be some disciplinary
It,
whatever. And so
it
I'm
better
not
be.
really sure if they were expelled or what happened in that situation. But when the mother took her or sent her kids to school, because she has more than one child that goes there, her daughter was being threatened. In her son's class, the teacher was saying, to remove, you guys should go to a different school. And mind you, the teachers are saying that they're not getting the type of support that they need at that school. And I'll give you an example. After I had the meeting with the director, school board director, Leonard, he and I had a meeting, and we went to the school on a Monday. On that Monday that we went, and I don't know if you remember, Throwbridge had led in their school, so they sent their students to WCLL. So in order to protect those kids that came from Throwbridge, they brought in security from central office, and they
Mm,
made sure that those kids. And this kind of gives you an idea of the danger at that school.
mm,
They brought the kids in 30 minutes earlier, and they had access to the second floor, and they left 30 minutes earlier before the other kids came in. And our observation, standing there with the director, Leonard, kids were coming in smelling like marijuana. Kids were coming in late, and they were
mm.
telling them to, come sign in and go to your office, just in disarray, if you will. So
Mm.
that's the type of environment that's at the school and that the teachers were describing, and why they felt in danger for their lives and for something happening, tragic happening to the kids. Now they've got, so this is 5-year-olds on the same floor as eighth graders, and this is where this happened at. It looks like you had a question, Mark.
Yeah, yeah. When you was talking about how a lot of kids are engaging in doing drugs and this wild activities and wilding out, doesn't it appear that that's becoming, or it has became, the norm?
Yeah, and I think I don't know if that's the norm, because I just was at a school today, a
It's not the
Lutheran
norm for
school.
us.
Well, I just came from a Lutheran school today where I was volunteering, helping the students, about 16 students, learn how to play golf. And I was asking the lady at the desk, why is it so quiet in here? And she said, don't say that too loud because it could get loud. So, but it was a very docile situation. So I'm just comparing the two. So, and
Hmm.
I had went to a different school and by mistake today, but they were both very organized and they were Lutheran schools. So I can't say that this is happening everywhere, but maybe it's happened everywhere, not necessarily, but I know it's not happening at King, but it's happening at some of the MPS schools more often than at other schools. So,
Right.
and I'll give you a perfect example, Mark. I have a mentee that goes to WCLL, and he's in Child Protective Services now,
Mm.
and he got suspended a few times for fighting. So, like they say, they fight every day there. And the day that I was at the school with the school board
They fight
director,
every day, Vince.
they say there's fights at this school every day. I
Okay.
get this firsthand from 12 teachers.
Okay.
Yeah. So my kid, my mentee walks in, and because he just came off a suspension for this time smoking marijuana, and we talked for a half a second because I wanted to talk to him about the group home, and it just shows you the chaos and confusion that's up in this particular school. And then the following week, this happens with this 5-year-old boy. You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
it's really tragic, and I'm just don't understand why our officials in this city aren't outraged about this and doing something about it. And
Indeed.
by this mother sending her child to a different school, and that particular school, um, evidently central office didn't do their due diligence, because the class that they put her son in it wasn't a special needs class, and they couldn't meet his needs. So central office takes the kid and sends him to a school that can't meet his needs. And on top of that, the teacher was telling the mother that she needed to talk to central office to find a different school for her child. And evidently word had gotten to this school what had happened, so her daughter was also being threatened at this new school.
Mm. Mm.
So that's the chaos and confusion that's going on, um, and there doesn't seem to be an end, or there doesn't seem to be a reaction at central office. And I've been working with I also had a conversation with the board director, school board director, that area, Mr. Ferguson, and I don't his reaction hasn't been one that I would consider, if it were me in that position for his district and that's his school. I mean, to call a press conference and talk about what's going on, and to be outraged about this situation, and it
Sure.
doesn't seem to be the
Sure.
case.
Sure. I'm just sitting here thinking, Brother Vince, that you have a kid that was forced to do something that was beyond his control. They had to relocate to another school for fear of the kid's safety. They're still in fear of the kid's safety, but the question still remains: what happened to those kids that made the young boy do what he did? And the fact that that part's being hidden, it bothers me. You understand?
Mhm.
Because if the kid that was harmed, if he is still in quote unquote harm's way or the possibility of it, shouldn't that give you a thought like, look, we need to do something with those kids. We need
Mhm.
to keep this kid safe because those kids over here are clowning. Number one. Number two, it raises another question within my mind. What's going on with those kids to make them do the things that they do?
Yeah. And and it's the best question in terms of, we have a central office that's supposed to mitigate this situation, versus sending a kid someplace else. Let's fix this situation and this environment in this
Indeed.
school. So instead of, I think this is status quo for central office, I believe, to not do their due diligence, and it's just a perfect example that a teacher, 12 teachers come to me. I don't know any of these teachers, come to me from this school saying that it's in disarray. So why wouldn't these 12 teachers go to central office? Because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job. Period.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's my conversation with them, is
Mm-hmm.
that the connection with the school and central office, nothing gets done. So at WCLL, they have paras teaching classes. They've had an exorbitant amount of students in one class. One of
Mm.
the paras said they had her grading tests and she didn't know what she was doing. So the school is totally out of control. and nothing's being done at or central office. Now, the new superintendent um, said that she would talk to the parents and do something about the school. She has not talked to this mother at all. And this message was relayed by Director Leonard to the superintendent. And these are her words, that she wanted to meet with the mother, but she's more concerned about the lead situation. I mean, so this is immediate. We understand the lead situation, what you're doing, but you told this mother that you were going to meet with her and take care of business. She hasn't met with this mother. So think about how this mother feels and why
Indeed.
she doesn't want to meet with anybody, because
Yeah.
the incoming superintendent says, hey, I'm going to meet with you, but she doesn't show up
Mm.
and she doesn't call this young lady. And the young lady's terrified about, I mean, what could happen to her and her kids. I think you heard her on the interview saying that we're living in dangerous times and
Mm.
she's afraid to show her face because in
Mm.
fear of retaliation. Why
Yeah.
should a parent be fear for retaliation from a school? I
Right.
mean, so the teachers are saying that parents come up there and go through the hallways, and there's been fights and with parents and kids at this school.
Mm.
Well, we got a
Now,
superintendent that knows it. And here's my concern is that, she came in, she's doing her dog and pony show with the school board president. And I seen one situation where the mayor standing behind her, and she's doing this, but this is an immediate situation. This just happened when I showed her the video. And her reaction is, you're going to send an investigation to the school board, where the parents and teachers already said that the cooperation at that level is not what it should be. There should have been an independent investigation, because central office needs to be investigated, in my opinion.
well, there is some, yeah, a lot of people did drop the ball on that. And I want to add, I want to for you to talk about the situation of NPS as a whole, because NPS has had a lot of issues, financial issues, the lead abatement issue, right? That's the lead abatement, that's citywide.
Yeah, I
Right.
think the financial issues. MPS has billions of dollars, and they in Madison they've got surplus. And I think there's other people who've done some investigations out there. I'm not privy to all of the information, but evidently there's a lot of money that has come up missing at MPS, in spite of or in conjunction with the $252 million referendum that they just passed last year to fill some of those gaps.
Mm. Mhm. One thing that really stuck out to me is the grades, the you know the overall academics of kids that go through NPS. It's not looking good, bro.
Well, and I don't want to get away too far from this baby that
Yeah.
was taken, but I'll say this: last year, 2024, in January, some numbers came out. I went to North Division School, and I dropped out and joined the Navy um, for personal reasons. But they announced that less than 12% of the students at North Division can read at grade level. And when I heard that, even though I didn't graduate from North Division, immediately I went up and I went to the school board and I said, "Hey, I want to be a volunteer at the student at the school," because I had an idea of not fixing the problem, but trying to help remedy the situation. And I went out and I spent over close to $3,000 on some books. And the plan is to meet with 100 families and watch a couple of movies, one about our history and then one about African American history. And I would give them one of these books that I had purchased for the family to have in the household, which I think what I was trying to do is to give them an incentive to not only to understand their history, but also to reacclimate reading at home.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll show you a copy of the book.
Okay. While he's gone, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys have any questions you want to ask during our interview, please do so.
Can you see
So,
that, Mark?
Egyptian Book of the Dead, yes.
Yeah. So this is something that's of our history. I watched a documentary, and this is one of the books that they recommended to look at and to read. So I wanted to implement this with at least 100 families at North Division to try to reacclimate there. And that was a horrible experience because um, I went to that school and they blocked me from being able to do this program,
Mm,
the administration at the school.
mm. But you know, it goes. I, I can't shake the fact that a lot of our youth, Vince, aren't proficient to read and write and
Mhm.
and just do what's necessary to to graduate high school.
Well,
Uh,
we have to go back to the legislation of No Child Left Behind.
uh,
So
uh,
that so it's if it gets to this grade they can't read, right, you keep passing them. You don't leave them behind.
mm,
So when we look at it, it's a systemic problem. So how would, even though that's from a political perspective, the school board, superintendent, the DPI superintendent all have a responsibility, and these numbers have been graved for a long time. And the question becomes, what happened? So I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago at the school board, where they had this sit down meeting, which I participated in. And what was very interesting to me is one of the teachers, retired teachers, had said this about the agenda that they had put together. So they put together a list of problems that they were having at MPS to solve. And this teacher who retired said, we had a meeting like this in 1986. And the things that you have listed on this agenda for us as problems was the same problems we were having in 1986. So isn't that the definition of insanity? So we're sitting down having the same kind of meeting with the same information with nothing changed.
nothing changed.
Yeah.
And if nothing changes, nothing changes.
It gets worse, and with our kids, and this is about our kids that
Mm,
are in society that are expected to perform, to get jobs that can't read or write. And I have friends who work in human resources who have said some of the things that and the young people that they've encountered, they're not hireable for multiple reasons. I mean, it's they don't have a work ethic. They
mm.
sometimes they come in smelling like marijuana and think that it's cool. There's just a lot of things that are going on with our culture because of this. No, I believe part of it is No Child Left Behind, but the bigger issue is the family structure and what happened
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the city of Milwaukee. And I have my philosophy about what happened, and um, it's back in the was the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, no, closer to 80s, when they started to this choice and charter, and they started busing our kids out of our neighborhoods, and they took away the village concept, because now we have a situation in our community where we're trying to, what they say is desegregate, but they never reached that plateau by moving our kids around. Caucasians moved their kids away from some of these schools, but we were left holding the ball, meaning our kids in our neighborhoods are broken up. Nobody knows anybody anymore. And of course, this was the time of the crack epidemic and
Mm,
the manufacturing leaving the Milwaukee, and
hmm
they're saying
hmm
that nobody has anything to do.
Yeah.
And it's also we're living now in 4 or 5 decades of teenage pregnancy. So there's a multitude of problems that precipitated this No Child Left Behind and the situation that we're in our communities today.
hmm I agree. I agree. Now, you're a mentor. Um,
I mentor, but I went back to college to because I'm a social worker. So um, I went back and got my master's in social work to be able to. I'm a social worker. I mean, people say advocate, this, that, and the other, but I do social work. So everything that I do is from a social perspective in trying to increase or create a better quality of life for our people, if you will.
mhm. The reason why I asked about the mentor part is I wanted to ask you if you recognized similar issues with the different kids that you work with?
When you say similar, you mean reading? Yeah,
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 like reading. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I have a story. A couple of years ago, about
or
2 years ago.
behaviorally, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a parent came to me. As a matter of fact, two female came to me, and their sons were Kia boys, and one's 15 and one was 13 years old. And in the process, it's kind of crazy. But here's what happened. I take the kids to the museum, the Black Holocaust Museum, the two boys, and I take one of the Kia boys, and I take the Kia boy that I take with me. I take his brother with me, and the Black Holocaust Museum, with I can't think of the person's name off the top of my head, but some of the pictures in there
Fuller?
were very, huh?
Yeah, Fuller?
No,
Howard
not
Fuller?
that's school. That's the school. Don't no, not Fuller.
Okay,
It's
okay.
the curator, not the curator, but the person that went through some trauma that put this all together. His name might come to me, but the moral of the story is that the brother who was maybe 12 or 13 years old could read better than his 15-year-old brother. But what happened is that, I was talking to him about lynching and what happened to us in the South and through slavery, what happened. And as we're
Mhm.
walking through the museum, one of the younger kid asks me, what's that hanging on his neck? So,
Mm.
they have some graphic pictures in there.
Yes,
So
yeah,
this is
yes,
a
yeah.
13 or 15-year-old that's looking at a picture and doesn't recognize the fact that this person is from uh, during slavery when they hung people, and his response to that, what was that around his neck? So he didn't recognize the fact that this person was being hung, and that what that tells me is that what's being taught in our schools and what they don't have the knowledge of our history.
Mhm. Or homes.
Yeah, period.
That too. I have a comment here on the chat. I'm gonna read it to you. It says a child not being proficient isn't just an NPS or school failure. It's also the parents' failure. When we were kids, our parents taught us ABCs and one, two, threes before we even went to school. I agree with that because that happened with me. Most times we enter kindergarten reading. Lately, parents don't seem to think it's their responsibility to teach their children. They believe it all falls on the schools, and it does not. It is definitely a team effort. You can't just blame teachers and not put some of the blame on lazy, detached parents.
Okay, and I agree with that 1,000%. Okay,
So do I. So do I.
so now let's go back and let's reiterate some things. Um,
Because my mom and
yeah.
my pops, yeah, they sat my black behind
Okay.
down and made sure, yeah.
Yeah. So let's think about this for a second, Mark. We got 4 or 5 decades of teenage pregnancy,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure.
So before that, we had the crack cocaine epidemic,
Yes,
and
sir.
before that, we had the if you want to get this welfare money, you can't have
Yeah,
it in your house.
yeah,
So let's
yeah.
go back in history and let's just look at what precipitated this situation that we find ourselves in where our kids can't read. When you have a 28-year-old grandmother who has a 14-year-old daughter, right?
They exist.
And the daughter has a child.
Mm.
So who's teaching who? The 14-year-old can't. So this is a holistic problem to me that started when we started busing our children out of our communities, where you can go down the street or next door and read. So nobody knows anybody anymore. And the onus is on the household, but we have to look at the fact of the matter is that we have children raising children. And that's not going to equate to someone being able to read. And let's look at it from another perspective, Mark. How many daycares do we have in our community?
A lot. I don't
What are
even
the daycares doing? Parents send their kids to the daycare so they can what? They can go to work. These daycares have a bunch of kids at the daycares who they aren't really servicing and teaching their ABCs, this, that, and the other, but they're making a ton of money driving around in Jaguars, this, that, and the other. So we have it's just not one answer to this problem where we're at, but
sure,
some of the bigger answers is not having a father in the home, which
sure.
was premeditated, and the crack cocaine epidemic, and then
Sure.
the busing situation. So a lot of all those things contributed to where we are today. And the law says no child left behind. So when I grew up, if you didn't pass, you didn't pass. You went
Mhm.
back.
You went back.
Well, that's a
You
problem.
went back.
So what do we do about the system that says that we can just keep pushing you along even if you can't read or write?
Hmm.
It's systemic.
It's systemic. There's a lot, meaning that there's a lot of layers, and you
A
just
lot of layers.
a
It's just
lot of
not one
layers.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of layers to this thing, and you hit you hit a really crucial nail when you said there was children raising children,
Yeah. And
and
that's still the case.
sadly they're raising them by themselves.
Well, I'm a 28-year-old grandmother, and I've been told when I first came back to Milwaukee in 1986, this young lady said, my kids don't call me grandma. I'm 28 years old. They call me by my name. So the dynamics of the family has been broken down. So grandmother no longer has the meaning as it did in the past, where this was somebody that you can go to and get some knowledge and some understanding about life. When this 28-year-old woman has not really lived a life, and what she's doing is just kicking it.
There are cases, many cases in which, you'll run into that single mother that is very neglectful, but there are those single parents uh that are doing their thing, and
I'm one of them.
kudos to them, kudos to them, and we need to have them as examples instead of this social media uh uh mess, perpetrating all of the negativity.
Mhm.
I mean,
Well, I mean,
and they're
so
and they're,
that's
and they're
parental.
glorifying the negative.
Yeah, but that's parental right there, because if you can't control your household, then that's a problem. And I'll give you a perfect example. I worked for Child Protective Service for 8 years. And this, I'll never forget this story. I go in the house, and the kid, he can't be no more than 4 or 5 years old, Mark. You know what he's got in his hand?
Mm.
A joystick. You know what he's doing? He's in a car on a joystick riding down, and this is Center Street down the city of Milwaukee. So a lot of kids have been thrown into these devices, and uh, it precipitates to what we see in today when we get the Kia boys and we get everybody speeding, is because they've been brought up and their brains are wired as, they've never been in a car before, but when they get in a car, it's the same thing as a video game to them. That's why we see all of these accidents in our city, because we have these kids who have grown up with these joysticks in their hand, and they think the steering wheel of a car is a joystick, and they're dodging all of these obstacles that they put in the way. And now they got in the way. They put these what do you call them, bump outs in the way now.
Mm.
I'm sure they implemented those into the video games too.
I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts of these speed bumps or whatever they call them throughout the city?
Waste of money.
Mm.
A waste of money, because I've got a bunch of pictures in my phone right now of, I got two of these things, and that's the sign that uh, your lights shine them, and they brighten up or whatever at night.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
knocked down, and one of them's been knocked down at least 3 or 4 times. So it's a waste of money. But it's I went to the meeting when they, we're off topic a little bit, but I went to the meeting in 2023. It was where it was the mayor, the common council, the sheriff, and Chief Norman, the captain, or
Mm.
no, the chief.
Police chief, the police
They
chief.
were saying, "Hey, look out for 2024, because they're re-engineering the streets." So this is their idea of re-engineering the streets to combat erratic driving. And they would say they were putting emphasis on bike lanes. I mean, we got what, 4 months of winter, summer in this state, in this city, and 8 months of snow. It doesn't make sense to put all of these things in some of the areas. I went down near, going towards downtown. It's like, what the heck did they do down here?
Mm.
Yeah, so that's a problem. I mean, so when you look at it, going back on point, the leadership in the city, the fact that the superintendent, the mayor, and the county executive seen this video of this baby being vaped, and none of them has said anything publicly, it's a problem. So there's a lack of leadership in a lot of different capacities in this city, and that's why it's deteriorating to the nth degree.
Okay. So I'm going to turn the page a little bit, and I'm going to ask you, if you were given the power to make changes to make our city better, what would you do and where would you start?
Where would I start as the mayor? Uh, First of all, clean house. Anytime you're under a new leadership, I worked in corporate America. When a company acquires a company, you go in there and you bring in your people in positions of that you think that you need them in. Unlike, this, we have a idiot in office. It's similar to that. You go in and you look at it, which he didn't do his due diligence. You do your due diligence and you see where we're having problems at in the city, and you attack those areas. So we have a cleanliness issue. We have an education issue. We have a job issue. The first thing that I would do if I were in office, I would get a bunch of people together and say, we're going to go throughout the country and see what type of businesses that we can attract to this city. One of the problems here is that we don't have jobs or livable wage paying jobs. And I'll give you a perfect example. Over the last 10 years, we've had probably over 1,000 jobs that left my immediate area. And one of them, Astronomics, moved to Oak Creek. Eaton
Yeah, yeah,
Corporation moved. Eaton Corporation
yeah.
moved to Menominee Falls, and
Mm.
down the street from me, um, DRS, they just took 400, close to 500 jobs possibly, and moved them to Menominee Falls. So we have leadership in the city that can't see the need to be throughout the country and the world to see what we can build in this city to be able to create jobs. That's a problem that we have, is a lack of livable wage paying jobs. However, you can't. So at this particular company, it was probably more Caucasians than they were of us. But every time that company had a job opening, they came throughout the community to see if someone was eligible for these jobs. And what we should have been doing, and what they should have been doing in office, is to create programming at MATC that can support what they're doing at this organization from our culture to be able to go in and to do these jobs. It was a Navy contractor, and I'm from the Navy, so I'm high on that part of it. And these were less. No job there paid less than $18 an hour. So
Mm.
that's one thing that I would do. The other thing that I would do is talk to the Common Council and ask them, why do you guys keep putting these liquor stores in my community? We're going to squash that.
Mm.
We're not having any more liquor stores, any more liquor license going to be issued in this city. If you come in my area right now, we had this store, it was named the Hotspot. It wasn't because of anything that I've done, but they got it raided in August of last year, which took away their liquor license.
Permanently?
Huh? No,
Permanently?
not permanently. I'll tell you about that too. Their liquor license was gone, and if you ride over here right now, Mark, compared to what it used to be, it's almost like being in Brookfield or someplace else. It's clean there and it's quiet. However, my alderperson Pratt tried to pull the rug or the okey doke on us, and she brought in a young lady who lives in Brookfield who says that she was part owner of the store in order to get the liquor license from the store. Well, I had done my due diligence. I went down to the licensing committee and I pulled the licensing paper, and this lady's name was on there. However, she had 0% interest in the business. So my alderperson is trying to and note, and if I would not have found out about this, Mark, the store would have had a liquor license renewed, period, under her bringing this person in. And she had already introduced this young lady to a different block watch. Now I'm the leader of a block watch. She didn't bring this lady to our attention, but she's working with people that know that they can do what they want to do. But unfortunately, they weren't able to do it because I had the credentials, the paperwork that says she's lying. And I think that the older person needs to step down just for telling that lie.
Okay. Well, I don't want to engage in,
Yeah.
what that. I don't want to get all into that because I want to focus more on uh the issues that our city is dealing with. And from my perspective, if I had that type of if I were, let's say, the mayor, uh you touched on cleaning house, education and jobs. I will also focus on that as well. But I will also, I guess, look at what we can do, not necessarily what's being. I mean, I will look at what's being done, but I would concentrate more on how can we fix it. And sometimes cleaning house has to be that way. If people aren't doing their jobs, then we got to put them on notice. Either do your job, or we get somebody else that can do your job. From an educational standpoint, we need more teachers, bro.
Well, let me
We
put it
need
this
more
way.
teachers. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. We need more teachers. We need better. What's what I'm looking for? We need more up to date books. I can tell you that, because from what I understand, I think NPS their books are outdated, like 10
Well,
years.
they do tablets now for the most part.
Okay,
So they do a lot of stuff in our schools on tablets.
and I would. People may chip on me about this, but I'm going to say this: we may have to revisit that child left behind thing. Here's
Well,
why. Here's why. Because we can't make our kids learn anything. That's and I go back to the what was said earlier about it being a team effort. Kids nowadays they don't look at school as fun. They don't look at education as fun.
MPS schools, not all schools.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm just saying that I'm talking about the kids, not necessarily the schools. I'm talking about the kids. They don't look at education as fun or something that is necessary. Back in the day, HBCUs was packed, and now we're facing for Black men, it's a 20% decline, 26% decline in HBCUs. Men don't see the advantages of getting education.
Well, I don't either. I mean, I think when I grew up, I would push towards the service type jobs, plumbers. They took all of that out of school. So college is not the answer for everybody. But let me say about the teachers. So one of the teachers, in the conversation at WCLL, a new teacher came to the school. He quit the second day. And the reason that he quit, the teacher said, well, that you can lose your license. And he said, I'd rather lose my license and lose this job rather than lose my life. So how can we get more teachers, anybody interested in that profession, when the profession isn't teaching the teachers or giving the teachers the leeway to be able to do what they do in a safe environment? Who would want to go in a hostile environment? And at this particular school, they've had numerous teachers, and the teacher that alerted me in the beginning, she's resigning from this school. We already don't have enough school teachers in the pipeline. So how do you get more teachers? That's a huge, well, the fact of the matter, people aren't having that many kids nowadays anyway. We got a cluster of schools that they need to do some consolidating, from my understanding. And how all of this takes place, and that's not an elected official's job, other than the superintendent of the state and the superintendent of the city. That's their responsibility. Now, the mayor or the governor can chime in because they're over these individuals and make something happen, but that's not the case. So from Madison to City Hall, there's nothing being done to acquire or to attract more teachers. When you've got people at central office making over $100,000 a year, and our teachers who's on are in these classes, whose lives are being threatened, and whose books are being thrown at, and you got people sitting at central office getting paid all of this money, and their lives are on the line, and nobody's doing anything about it. Who wants to be in that type of environment? This mother's child is in the bathroom, and the bathroom, and a 5-year-old with special needs has 8th graders putting a vape pipe in his mouth. Now tell me that's not how do you fix that hostile environment? To want teachers to come and to be attracted to be able to teach in an environment that's safe?
Well, we have multifaceted problems, and we need to have multifaceted solutions.
Well,
So I mean, we need to have all hands on deck, bro. We need to have our parents involved, the parents of
well,
these
this
kids
parent is
involved.
involved. The superintendent said she
And
was going to
we need,
call her. She didn't call her. The mayor seen the video. The county executive seen the video. So
mm,
tell me what you're supposed to do as a parent when you go to central office and this is the kind of response you get.
but the problem is we need more parents to go to these city hall meetings
Well,
because
that's a totally different topic. We do need that,
yeah,
but 4 decades of teenage pregnancy, we have to and all hands on deck. And I mean, I've got some, I can go over some things in my head that I've thought about how to start the process of remedying this situation. But when I've got an immediate situation um, at hand
mhm,
with
mhm,
with no response to a
yeah,
child. Now imagine if this kid would have hit that pipe or whatever, and he died from that.
mhm,
And imagine if that was your kid, Mark.
yeah, yeah. I
I
was
mean, that's
thinking,
your baby. If that's
indeed.
your baby, and somebody gave him a vape pipe, what you gonna do? So this lady is 10 seconds from going ballistic,
Hmm,
and they keep running her around the school board and sending her kids to another school that's dangerous.
mhm,
So where's
mhm,
the school board at? Where's the superintendent? Where are these people at to fix this problem?
yeah, yeah.
So you can say the mother this, but this mother says, I send my kid to school to be safe. He's got special needs. What is he doing in the bathroom with eighth graders by himself?
And,
Period.
and see where I was going with that. We need all parents, as many parents as we can, but it's I'm not going to say we're fighting a losing battle because I have hope that things can change, Vince. I'm saying that there needs to be methods in which we can get these parents and these knucklehead kids engaged.
Well, the
And
kids aren't knuckleheads, the parents are knuckleheads, not the kids. The kids are born
ignorance
innocent
begets ignorance.
into a
So
family that's chaotic and out of control. And I've been to CPS for 10 years and I've seen all of this stuff, and it's systemic too in every facet.
sure.
So if it were me, I would start considering shutting it down. And if I had a kid in MPS, I'd take them out. They'd be homeschooled. They wouldn't go to that school. If I couldn't get my kid in a good school, I would homeschool them. I got IA, I got all kind of resources. I can teach them our history instead of their history.
Hmm.
Man, my kids would be at home and we would be having a great time because
And
we
it's
would be learning and we would be doing fun things. We would be going places, and they would be. I'll tell people that COVID was a tragic situation, but it also could have been a situation where we could have caught up. Because if I had a kid that was in school, man, they would have, if they would have went back to MPS, they would have had to send them back home because they would have been too smart for MPS. We would have took care of business at the house because learning doesn't stop anywhere. Kids should be learning all the time, and that's not happening. And in a lot of our families right now, and dysfunctional families and the traumatized families, there's a lot of marijuana smoking. Kids are self-medicating, so we have a multitude of problems, and it starts with these young people who are traumatized and trying to figure out a way to feel better, and they're self-medicating, a lot of them, either drugs or alcohol, and that's the other problem in our community. Shut down some of this stuff where they don't have access to these liquors. I mean, you don't see any other community with this many liquor stores and drunks and people walking around. I got Caucasians in my community walking around looking for drugs in this area.
Hmm.
So the solution is multifaceted, but I think there needs to be an overhaul of MPS, period. And if I were in a position of leadership, I would be telling parents that, hey, we need to teach you how to get access to some of this information is out there. Anything that you want to know or learn to be whatever you have to be is on the internet. It's a college, an advanced college, and parents are, some of them are have been teenage parents, and they didn't get the education that they needed, so they don't know what to do or how to get their child to the next level because they aren't to the next level themselves.
So yeah, I hear you. I hear you. With those parents, the young parents that are uh, ignorant to really coin the word, how can we reach them? How can
Well,
we
the way I
how,
reach them in my community, Mark, it takes a village.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, you come down my block, you don't see any trash. I got a sister down the street there, got 3 boys, and some of the I take these boys to the golf course, I take them bike riding, and I show them what it looks like to give back and what it looks like to be a man in your neighborhood. The only thing that we and those boys can take care of is this block and this area, and that's what we do. And we take care of the men in this block, we take care of our women. They don't
mm,
have to come outside and pick up not one piece of paper. The men do it or the boys do it. And we make sure you come on down my block every day, it's clean. You don't see no debris unless we
true.
just haven't gotten to it yet because somebody's in the morning and somebody's in the afternoon. But
Mm,
the kids, if we had men on every block that kids had access to, that they could see, and that these men were and women, let's not take them out of the equation because they have a responsibility too. And I'll say this, Mark, is that um, unfortunately, because of teenagers having children, we have a lot of single women homes, our households. And what we have in our community right now, either our boys, a lot of our boys are being feminized or they're being trained to be killers in the community. And those are the individuals that we have to reach. However, we have to look at the mayor and the county and all these programs, community service programs that they created that the county, what's his name, David Crawley just gave $500,000 to another organization for crime prevention. They're going to split it up with 3 different organizations, and it's the statistics say there's been the amount of non-fatal shootings have decreased, but homicides are increased now. And you've given away millions and millions of dollars to different agencies, and nothing, insanity again. Nothing's changed other than a bunch of people getting a job and they keep moving through different jobs. And that has to stop. We have to stop begging for and taking money to fix a problem that's not being fixed, and we have to step up to the plate. The men and women have to step up to the plate in this city, and we have to start taking care of each other. Stop taking this money and start creating jobs for ourselves in this community, which we're not doing. Everybody wants a grant. I don't want a grant. I work for my living. And if you took grants out of the city right now and you just say there's no more grants, you have a ton of people here with no jobs and nothing else to do. Because if I was in a position to hire somebody that was doing a grant or something like that didn't get anything accomplished, you wouldn't be working for me. This happened. This stuff happened on your watch, not mine.
mm. I like that village mentality approach to our communities, and as it relates to uh, making sure that our youth and our men are accountable. And growing up, we had that. I remember, and this is not to go off the deep end, but I do remember as a kid growing up, we looked out for our own. If our neighbor was short on butter or sugar or something else, like, hey, can I borrow some sugar or some eggs or whatever? We looked out for one another back then, and unfortunately, we lost touch with that village mentality, and it's become more of a do for self
Yeah. And the
type of deal.
question
And
becomes, I've been talked to a couple of my spiritual advisors, and one of the things that I learned from them
we
is,
definitely need to bring that back.
before you can move forward, you have to go backwards. So we have to look back and look at what you're talking about and see what happened that changed the dynamics. And then we have to go back to the basics of what worked. And what worked is we had more families involved, and we had more neighborhoods involved, and we had more communities involved. And the catalyst for that, to me, growing up, was community based schools, meaning that you can go to a grade school, you can go to a middle school, and you can go to a high school, and you can walk to all three of them. And that keeps the community together, because if you go over there on Sherman where the Jews live, they got all three of those. The Hmong's have built their community. If you go to Brown Deer, they got Brown Deer Grade School, Brown Deer Middle School, and Brown Deer High School. And you see people walking their kids to school. It's called camaraderie. And now we know each other, and we can start looking out and taking care of each other. They've removed that from our villages, the family concept and the community-based schools.
So we need to bring that back.
Absolutely. And that's what I've been fighting for. I've told Fuller, I've told the board, I've been at those board meetings. We need to go back to what worked. And what worked is community, because community-based schools builds the village back up. Because now, mothers and fathers and this, that, and the other are walking, and we're getting to know each other, reacquainted again. If we go down, probably 90% of these neighborhoods in our communities, they don't know their neighbors anymore. And I mentor, and I also am, I've got about 5 elders that I look after in my community in a decent neighborhood, and they're afraid to come outside. So how do we rid our community of that, where our elders who a child could sit on the porch and talk to and get some information for, and teach them how to take care of our elders too. We have to take care. I grew up in a totally segregated neighborhood. You know what? We did perfectly fine. We graduated. We got good jobs. We're still working. We don't need Caucasians. We need to take care of ourselves. And what we didn't do, we didn't go when they, I asked people what happened to the men in this city, because I was out on the middle of on the island in the Indian Ocean taking care of this country, and I left behind a bunch of brothers who couldn't take care of a city block. And you're going to complain to me? You can't take care of the city. So I come back to a absolute disaster. Everybody dropped the ball, and they want to blame it on the white man because he took the jobs away. Well, there's other things that people can do to make money besides selling drugs to our women.
Okay. So I get the village approach. We need to bring that back.
Community-based schools first.
Say what?
Community-based schools.
Well, we need to get our community back in line. And like you said, I think that what would help is we need to regain that concept of family from a community standpoint.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. From a community-based perspective, family, neighborhood, family, community, family, block. All of it. It's about the family. And I'm not just talking about a single family. I'm talking about, that's my family next door. We're not biologically connected, but we're connected as a people, as a culture, as a neighborhood, as a block, as a community. We have to get back to the basics of who we are before we became slaves to this country.
And here's another angle that I would suggest too, in terms of solutions and whatnot. Fatherhood. We need fathers. We have fathers that are being active, right? And I'm not knocking all fathers, but I am saying that we need to have a stronger fatherhood presence, in our community, because it's been test proven that our kids with dads that are involved, they do better in school, they do better in life.
Yeah, but we have to go back to teenage pregnancy. It was a teenage girl and it was a teenage boy, and when the baby was born, the boy disappeared. He was not a man when he had the child, and he may not even be a man today. So we have to, how do we get kids to understand? I mean, we used to have sex education in school. We have to get back to educating our people that if you lay down or have sex with an individual, the probability of that producing a child, and the fact of the matter, if you do that, you have 18 years of your life that you're supposed to take care of that. We don't teach that, and people don't understand that, because at 14, 12, 13 years old, having sex and having a baby, There's no man, and the mama said, I'm not taking care of this baby. You had that baby, you take care of it. So that's the problem. These aren't, you're right, we do need dads, but we need kids and babies to stop having babies first. I mean, they say the average man doesn't mature until he's 30 something,
Mm.
and the female a little bit younger than that. So we have we're still learning. I mean, at 26 years old, man, I was just starting to
Yeah,
become a man because I've been around a little bit and
yeah.
learned some things.
And I was just going to say that as men, I mean, as people, I think we'll never stop learning. But with men, I think that we tend to uh, we don't tend to get it or start to walk into our manhood, until I would say until our 30s.
Yeah, and we don't have I mean, we have a lot of males and females in our community. We don't have a lot of men, and we have a lot of them, but we have a lot of people in our community are just there, and they're just males and females. They're not adding value. I mean, I talked to a young boy that grew up in the neighborhood just the other day. He's got 3 kids by 3 different women, and he's only in his 20s.
Hmm.
So is that a man? That's not a man. That's a boy with a man's job. I say, I asked him how you surviving, man, with the child support. How much do you owe?
Hmm.
Because I know you're not working, not like that. And if you are working, that's garnishment. You ain't got nothing left over. I mean, I went through that. I paid child support for 16 years.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But luckily, I knew how to budget and manage the little bit of money that I have to be able to survive.
Hmm. Hmm. But we need, you know, I did fatherhood groups at the jail, and one thing that me and my partner really tried to drill home is that your presence as a dad, as a man, is very important. It's vital.
Yeah.
You may not have to be the best dad, or you may not have to have a lot of money. And truth be told, Vince, most kids don't care about the money. We want you home. We want you with us. We want you here. We want you
Well,
active.
well, Mark, I think that's one of the problems. First of all, the fact that he's in prison, so that's time that he's disconnected. And we also, I have a daughter, and most people don't know that I have a daughter. My daughter's in her 30s, and I haven't seen my daughter for more than 10 times in the last 32 years of her life, and she's 38 years old, simply because the system helped my ex-wife keep my kids away from 'em. So we have a lot of situations in our communities, in our neighborhoods, where females are in the way of fatherhood. And then we have to go back to the 60s, is when if we catch that man in the house, you're not getting his welfare check. That still goes on today too. So there's a lot of problems that have been created systemically through the judicial system, through the school system, through the welfare system. And we've bought into a lot of it. We have to stop buying into it and buy out of it.
From what I understand, Vince, we don't have a welfare system anymore.
Yes, we do.
What do you mean? I thought welfare was done and over with.
No, no, they still get money. They call it welfare to work, but they're still getting money for doing nothing, and it's not enough money to get anywhere. So, and they can get welfare. A lot of women aren't getting child support, and they aren't working, and it's rough out here. It's going to get rougher once these tariffs starts to kick in for everybody, not just those people.
Indeed, indeed. If you were to give me a synopsis of the current state of the city.
So I'm gonna go back to as a people, we have a responsibility, in my opinion and from my perspective, is to make sure that our kids are taken care of, and our elders can be comfortable in their latter years. So now I'm going to bring it all the way back to this child. There's no outrage of a 5-year-old child being forced to vape, right? And you have to think about what else are these kids doing to other kids to that's dysfunctional. And this is a special ed kids, and also the trauma that it causes. So we're living in a very traumatic society. And what would cause a kid to do something like that? You know, what have they been doing at home? Why is a eighth grader vaping? Right? And we know that over the long run, that stuff in these kids' lungs is going to kill them. Where they're getting it. So now we have a problem at home and with
I
some
always thought the
parents.
problem starts at home.
Well, it does, but
Always thought that.
it does.
But
But
say that.
Mark, we don't have homes. We have babies raising babies. That's not a home.
Mhm.
That's just where somebody's laying their head. There's no learning going on. Kids are doing ADHD. They're on those drugs and they're smoking marijuana and with their parents, or their parents are smoking marijuana. They're getting the smoke in their system, and the long-term effects of this, and some of the adversity that we see in our community is prevalent to a lot of those conditions within the household that gets dragged into the school and everywhere else in our community, because it's going to get worse out here because people aren't going to have money, and it's going to be desperate. So I
It-
can't tell you, and I can't, you know what, the
I
only
think
thing is,
we're already there.
well, no, it's no, we're not even
I
close.
think we
Tariffs haven't even kicked in yet, boss.
what true, but I'm just saying in terms of, I don't want to say desperation, but urgency.
Oh, we've been urged in an
We're
emergency
there.
situation
We're
for
there.
decades.
Yeah, we're there. We're
For
there.
decades.
And you know, you have a lot of families that are in survival mode, for the lack of a better phrase. We're in it. It's like, I got to do what I got to do to put food on this table. I
Yeah.
got to do what I got to do to make sure that that little Johnny has a bed to sleep in. Uh, are they doing it the best of their ability?
Well,
That,
one thing
hey,
we haven't touched on, we haven't touched on the mental health aspect of it. That's a whole nother subject line. But
yeah, that's
so drugs, alcohol, and mental health
yeah,
are all part of the problem.
yeah.
Drugs, alcohol, legal and illegal drugs, alcohol, and mental health. And some of this stuff causes mental health, the drugs and the alcohol.
Hmm.
I mean, if you walk down the street in the inner city, a lot of places you'll see people walking around like zombies.
You know, on this show, Vince, I don't know if I mentioned this enough, but for me, and I'm using me as an example, when I came back from the Marine Corps and my mental health started to take a dive, I turned to alcohol as my escape. You know what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of us do tend to go to that as their escape. I never thought about, and I never thought about counseling. You know, I never thought about any of that. I just thought about, what can I do to make it through the day. I was on survival mode. And I say that to say that a lot of people in our community, we're on survival mode. Um, we're working jobs that aren't paying well. We're working jobs that require us to work long hours. Where mothers are, hustling their asses off, working two jobs with no dude in the crib. You know, these parents. I mean, some of these people are doing what they have to do. I'm not giving anybody any excuse. I'm just telling them how I see it. And we have the solutions are like we both said. It's a multi-layered solutions. We the solutions are multi-layered because there has to be something that has to be installed, with at home. There has to be something that has to be instilled at schools, in our communities, as far as working. I mean, we need an overhaul. We need an overhaul. And we need to stay away from the clubs, stay away from the liquor stores, you know Let's grab some books, start reading some books. I mean, we need to bring education back as not the alternative, but the thing to do to achieve that next step in your life.
Well, I
You
mean,
know?
basic, math and reading is, I got I dropped out of high school. I got a GED, so um,
Yeah.
there's a lot going on, but there again, I'll go back, and if we're not taking care of our babies, all of them, and giving them what they need to survive in this, we've come from slavery, the agricultural industry. We came from manufacturing industry. We went to the service sector, and now we went to the computer sector, and now we're in the IA. Our people we were forced to do the agriculture and the slave labor. The manufacturing was jobs to pay to take care of the family. Um, we have to keep advancing with society and to be able to support our family. So what's the next phase? AI. Are we teaching AI at home? What are we doing? And what's going to be next? So it can be a situation where I think in our community, the way it's looked at is that we can easily be eliminated or extinct.
I have a few comments here. There's absolutely no black male leadership in our community. Sisters are left to fend for themselves. They feel unprotected, and until they feel protected by us, we're gonna continue having problems. I believe that's the key to our unity. Long hours and away from the crib, well, home. Uh, and he says, and now we're ashamed of our connection to agriculture. Remember back in the day, man, where our moms used to plant gardens in the backyard?
Well, my mom never did, but
I I
you
I
remember.
remember, I remember, yeah, you know, my mother, uh, rest her heart, but uh, yeah, she used to plant. She used to dig up. We had a big backyard, so we had a little
Yeah.
space that I helped her dig up, till the ground and do the
Mhm.
we ate from the house.
Yeah. So I even about 3 or 4 years ago, some people in our community, Uniting Guard Homes, evident. I think where they got a grant. Well, they were able to put. They got some land and they've got some gardens that they built, and it was abandoned. And it's like I don't know if the grant came back the next year. They didn't have the funding, but it's a very beautiful area. They built these wooden boxes and on some legs, and they've got some murals around there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know much about farming, although I know a little bit because when I was working at the Center for Veteran Issues, we had a brother there that was from Alabama that could grow a seed into a wood if he had to. And I
Mm,
said that to say this is that Andre Lee Ellis has a garden, and he's been having
mm,
people that come through his garden,
mm,
young people. And I
mm,
went to him last year and I said, "Hey, Andre, this is your expertise. We got this land, and we got these boxes that we can build this community. And can you help us out?" And he said, "No, I'm tired." Well, I say, "Well, you've had this program from X amount of years, so obviously you should have some apprentices. Can you send somebody to be able to manage this garden? Because if it's a program, let's make this, this is something that can grow. You can be the spearhead instead of having one garden. You've got gardens all over the city, and people are feeding themselves. But I met with a lot of brothers in this city, man, that just not on board with change and making things better. If they're looking at that grant money,
mm,
poverty pimps.
mm. And that goes to a different conversation as well.
Yep.
There's another comment here. It says, "Whatever happened to 4-H? You remember 4-H, bro?
All right. Well, that was in
Remember?
school. And I don't. I remember the letters, the number, and the letter, but I don't. I wasn't a part
I
of it.
remember they used to teach children how to garden and farm.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that we could do uh, as a community to make things better. But I can tell you, and you alluded to that earlier. You said your elder told you that you would have to take a few steps back in order to move a few steps forward.
But when you go back, you have to be analytical. What
Yeah.
happened?
Right.
What
Right.
happened
Right.
to get us to where we are? And now you can go back and you can look at it and you can start doing something different because we didn't just get here one day.
Mhm.
What happened to our mental health? What happened to families? We have to sit down and do some real brainstorming and set it up and say, okay, this is what happened. Now let's start to fix this. Nobody has started to fix it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you can give them a grant where they can split up some money and they can act like they're trying to fix something.
I agree. I'm with you on that because we do have to spend more time, unfortunately, thinking about what's being done, and then from there we have to ask ourselves, what can we do to make this better?
Mm. Yeah, and you know what? The
And
way I try to make things better is the what I can control in my environment and what God puts in front of me is all that I can do and to, for my purpose. You know, I've got about 5 or 6 elders. I've got some boys down here I mentor. I've got some other kids that I mentor. You know, I can do the best that I can to be the example for other boys, young men to see to be able to say that there is options, and I tell them my story and I tell them other stories and I bring them to people that can tell them stories.
mm,
um, I'm not going to fix or change the world, but the least that I can do is to help this mother down the street and this mother across the street. I don't have to be their boyfriend or their husband or whatever, because we're all in this together and we're supposed to be taking care of the village. And that's what I'm gonna continue to do until I can't do it anymore.
amen, amen.
And my village right now and is this baby that was I keep alluding to that's vaping, and that's not going to stop where there's not an outrage. The village, there should be a fire in the village under lit right now to find out what happened and make sure that this doesn't happen again. We got a new superintendent. I think she should go back to where she came from because she has already failed, in my opinion. The county executive and the mayor, they've seen this video of this kid vaping and they haven't said anything. They need to go to. We need the common council. We need the clean house because it's insane that we keep doing the same thing over and over again and nothing's changing. It's getting worse.
Yeah, we need to. There's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot
It
that needs to
starts
be
at the
done,
top.
brother. And you mentioned earlier that it's not going to happen overnight, but we need to be diligent. We need to be honest with ourselves and diligent and continue to do the work. And we need to be, and you mentioned this too, we need to be good examples to our kids. Because some kids don't have that. They don't have that man at home that can be a good role model to teach them how to be a man. But we have people like yourself that are taking the time out to chop it up with these young guys and show them, hey, this is how you do things as a man.
Yeah.
And you
And I'm not the man that I am because
teaching these young boys to be young men, right? And we need to have that village mentality,
I'll
because that
say this,
works.
Mark, is that I'm not the man that I am because of my mother. I'm the man that I am because I had an uncle down the street. I had a Mr. Dantzler. I had Mr. Hood. I had Mr. Summers. I had men around me. There's only
Indeed.
one. There's only one of me amongst many of these dudes that's sitting on the corner. That didn't happen before. We got to get the brothers off the corner into the neighborhoods to be men and to show we need examples. So so the term that I use, I have people that young when I was a boy, I had role models. How many people are men or males in our community are positive role models for these kids? They're not.
Mm. Hmm.
And we don't have very many, enough, I shouldn't say not very many, we don't have enough male role models for the boys that we have in this city. And it's obvious when you see a 13, 14-year, 4 or 5 of them clicking together, walking down the street, smoking that stuff.
Yeah.
You look perplexed.
Oh, no, I just have a lot of things going on in my head,
As you should.
and my thing, it goes back to the crib, Vince, and it goes back to men needing to be men, and not saying that I'm not saying that men aren't. I'm saying that I am saying that we need to hold ourselves more accountable, and we need to be good examples to our kids, man. I
Well,
mean,
if you hold people accountable in this city, you get blacklisted like I am. So I call them like I see them, and they put me on their list, but I really don't care because I can roll by myself if I have to. But
it's not
that
about
those barriers are up there, and um, the only thing that's going to bring those barriers down and for us to start coming back together is for them to stop getting this money that they can play with each other and spread the wealth that way when they're not really doing what they're supposed to be doing and to change or make a difference in this city. There's a lot of money that's being expended, that has been expended for a lot of years, and we're still in the same boat. But there's a few people that, that are revered, and I don't even want to go there. But that has to change the dynamics of I've never really used the terminology before, but we got to get rid of some of these poverty pimps in this city. They prey off of poor people. And I'm not just talking the community service organization. I'm talking about child protective services. I'm talking about MPS. All of them are using our kids, and they're not giving back. They're taking away from them. They're not really helping them, but these systems are set up to prosecute them or take them away out of the family, and to tear us apart. And we've been living through this for, I mean, look how big Child Protective Service is. Look how big Children's Court is, and how many people of our persuasion work those jobs that are making money. That's poverty pimping too. So not just these people that are getting the grants. That's, I mean, in essence, that's a grant too, because they're not producing any product that's being sold where they can make a living off of, other
mm,
than um, taking our kids through their systems and
mm,
getting paid for it as lawyers and GLs and social workers and ongoing care and all that other stuff. Man, we need to drop all of that stuff and start taking care of each other. We can have our own systems and pay ourselves.
yeah. Another comment just came in, and our black politicians depend on an ignorant electorate.
Yeah, well, that's the way it's set up because our politicians don't come into the community to um, advocate for votes. They go to the church.
Mm,
So there should be that says separation of church and state. Man, that's all they do is go to the church. I mean, they have these community brainstorming meetings. We're at a church. Everything is, and that's all they need is a few church votes to get in office because the rest of us not voting. I mean, if we look at I think I looked at some numbers in my area, 39,000 eligible voters one year and less than 4,000 people voted. So you get those 4,000 people out the church. That's why they go to the church. Make them go, kick them out of the church. We need as a community say, hey, politicians, y'all don't go to no more churches. If y'all want to talk to somebody, talk to us. And I'm having problems with my alderman talking to me right now. I mean, tell me you get ready to put a bar in my community that was just shut down some years ago because a shooting took place there. So I want to talk to the person that's bringing this bar in our community. What you going to do differently? You just made it. They're already setting it up, doing the building and everything, but you haven't told anybody. And I've already told it when you do something in my neighborhood or my community, I need to know because it impacts me. I have to drive by there at night and a stray bullet hit me. That's, we have to look at the holistically and how these politicians are doing to our community too.
well, brother, putting a club doesn't necessarily mean violence, though. I mean,
Every
Violent
club
people
that's been
do
there has been
violent,
violent so far. So I'm
violent
going
people
by
gonna do violent
history.
shit.
You're right, but I'm going by
It's
history,
gonna
and
be,
we're not
you
getting to
know,
be any better. And I've already talked to the guy that's opening the bar, and I know his history too. So I've already done my due diligence. So I know
all you can do.
what the probability of what's gonna kick off at that place that they're saying is gonna be a upscale restaurant with hookah, and it's not that big. I know what kind of people you're going to attract. I know what's going to be happening there. It doesn't take rocket science, but I don't mind if you hear. But I just need to know for my community and for my neighborhood and for this district,
Hmm.
what are you going to do to keep us safe? Yeah, it's lovely that.
Public safety is has always been a major concern. And
Well,
you know, you could put a band-aid on a large wound, which in some cases I think it's still the same narrative. But uh again, brother, I'm gonna go back to uh the village mentality and the home environment. I mean, ignorance begets ignorance, man. And you mentioned earlier that uh how you know, you got parents that are ignorant. They can't teach their kids to be productive. They don't know any better.
they're kids themselves, teenage pregnancy.
They're kids themselves, but we need to identify that as an issue and what can we do to solve that? Because I think why we're seeing our kids behave the way that they behave is in part home.
And
So
it's trauma.
what can be done? What can be done to fix their mentality of home?
Address their trauma.
Hmm.
Trauma. We have a lot of traumatized people in our community,
I agree.
vicariously and otherwise. When you
Agree.
know it's trauma is a mother right now in our community. I mean, a lot of parents, young kids, 20, 13-year-olds are self-medicating because, like you said, you turn to alcohol, they turn to whatever they're in the house.
I did.
And 9 times out of 10 is marijuana. They're self-medicating. So how do you get the marijuana out of the house to help them deal with their depression, their anxiety, other than turning to drugs when that's all that they see? Everybody's coming in with a black bag full of beer, or they got a blunt paper and they rolling it. So how do you get that out of the house when it's so embedded in a lot of these households now? That the ones that we're talking about in the community. There's a lot of beautiful um, parents, children, adults in this city. We're being overshadowed by the negativity, and a lot of it is from a lot of trauma that we've suffered in this community that hasn't been addressed, unaddressed trauma.
Unaddressed Trump. Yeah. Yeah. We definitely have to have another discussion and focus more on the mental health aspects of why we're seeing what we're seeing.
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
that
it's
that,
it's
that's a that yeah that hit home for me because I dealt with a lot of unaddressed trauma,
mhm. A lot of us have.
and I took it out to an extent with my kids because I was still in my trauma.
Yeah,
I
well,
was
yeah.
my trauma heavy,
So you just
heavy.
nailed it. I mean, so what can a traumatized individual do for his family if they don't get help
Hmm.
to understand their trauma? I mean, I couldn't be a therapist, but I do understand, how the brain works, which from their books and their history of studying the brain, and I have an idea, a great idea of how it works and how trauma works, and it's devastating. It's um, it's a psychological nightmare for
Hmm.
some people, some of the things that they have to go through. And when we look at it from a traumatic perspective, I had a divorce about 5 years ago, and I let's say I met 5 different women, and all 5 of those women have been traumatized. They've been sexually abused. So we have to look at trauma from a female perspective and a male perspective, and I mean, 5 out of 5 females that I had encountered and talked to, they were extremely traumatized and hurt. And they were trying, and some of them have been in therapy for years trying to address their issues. I can tell you some stories, I mean, that are horrific that some of our females had to go through. I mean, a young lady was telling me about her father touched her inappropriately, and we haven't addressed that issue in our community, and why a lot of our women are traumatized, and what triggers them. Something happened at that house a lot of times. And that spills over to the school, and nobody addresses that issue. I mean, I'll tell you, a young lady just last year, she told me that her father touched her inappropriately, and she's suicidal, and she says that she can still smell his ejaculation and the Vaseline. That's trauma. And a lot of that goes on in our community, and it's unaddressed. We don't talk about it. It's under the carpet, under the rug. We have to, and when we talk about our females, I think more females have been traumatized than male have, and they have not been addressed. And we
Right.
have to start loving our women enough to help them
Mhm.
through their traumas and get them help,
Mhm. Mhm.
because this self-medication is not just from living in a bad household. It's from maybe getting raped, getting molested, getting the crap slapped out of them, watching their parents, their mother, domestic violence, which attributes to men becoming violent men and women being receptive to being hit by a man.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's all trauma, and we're not addressing. That's one word that it's being used, but it's not being addressed.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
try to, I ran across these women, and I do and say what I can, but I can't phantom being raped by my father or somebody else or the mother's boyfriend. There's a lot of things that our women have gone through that we have to be able to empathize with them, and not always say that they're a bad parent. Something bad happened to them in a lot of situations to make them become who they are. And we say in our community, what's wrong with these women? They hate men and this, that, and they may have a valid reason for hating men because of their trauma and their triggers. Trauma triggers, and they take it out, and they don't even know why sometimes they snap like that. But I do. If we go back, what I learned as being a social worker is even this baby is to talk to him, and sometimes we have to talk to the parent to tell the story of the child, what happened to him, and now you can understand how to address their trauma. Sometimes we just in our systems we go in and we make an assessment that they may be ADD or ADHD, and we immediately just give them drugs to address the problem, or we haven't addressed the trauma. We haven't talked to that child, or a lot of instances, these people that they send to our families, they don't understand our culture, and they don't know how to talk to us
Mhm. Mhm.
to get us to share their trauma. But you also have to talk to the mother, the grandmother, if they're available, because now you got a story. And once you know their story, you can begin to help them. We got a lot of people that are traumatized who have not been able to tell their story to be able to get help. And we don't have the social services or the community services that we say that we have for people to understand what they're dealing with. A lot of these people that you're hiring, lawyers and other people to run these agencies, who have no idea what trauma is or how to address it, but you're giving them millions of dollars to squander. You're not putting people in position or who have the education or knowledge to deal with it. They just getting a paycheck and running to the next situation. They're not addressing the trauma that our people, men and women, are suffering, like yourself. You said it.
Mhm.
You turn to alcohol. They turn to other things: cocaine, heroin, drugs, legal, illegal. And a lot of times that's their escape. But nobody's coming to listen to them. They may send you someplace else. Well, go here, go there, but nobody's addressing the root cause.
Yeah. Yeah. Brother Vince, we need a part two to this, man. I wanna focus more on this unaddressed trauma. Uh, I appreciate you taking the time to come in and speak with me about, uh, the issue that's going on in our schools and with our kids. And uh, I just hope that things, you know, get better. And uh, I hope that the powers that be get to the bottom of this.
Well, they're not talking about it because they don't want to address it. That's why it continues to happen. But if it was a Caucasian boy trapped up in that bathroom like that, it would be outraged. And every one of these leaders will be standing up there behind that mother. Nobody's standing behind this mother, our mother. She's a mother of that's our baby.
Mhm.
That's our sister. Nobody's standing behind her. How do you make that things that makes me feel when I see a Caucasian on TV and all these politicians are standing by her? This shouldn't happen. And nobody came to this mother's rescue. Nobody. And she's at home right now with kids, and that family is traumatized. Her daughter is being bullied, and nobody's doing anything about it. That's the problem. It perpetuates.
Yeah.
And that's why nobody comes forward, because they're scared. And she's seeing a therapist because of her trauma. That a superintendent say, I got your back. I'm going to talk to you. She hasn't received that phone call. Don't lie to my people.
Mhm.
She lied to that woman.
Mhm.
And that's unforgivable. She needs to pack her bags and go. And the
Mhm.
mayor and the county executive need to figure out a way to get out of here too, because they failed her, this mother too, all of them,
Mhm.
period.
Mhm.
That's our sister. That's
Yeah.
the village.
Yes.
And nobody came to the village to help her. Nobody. Nobody.
How can people contact you, Vince?
I'm on Facebook, man. Vince Toney.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Brother Toney, man, it has been a pleasure to chop it up with you and have this deep discussion. And like I said, we're going to have another one. We're going to dig deep into this mental health thing, man, if that's all right with you.
Oh, well, I got a ton of serious mental health stories within my own family that we had to overcome.
Indeed.
So yeah,
Indeed.
that's a great subject matter. But and like I said, it's trauma, and that would be a great discussion, because now we'll talk about how the brain works, and help us understand how to somehow deal with people who have been traumatized.
Indeed. And the after effects of it. Indeed. With that being said, guys, this has been another episode of the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. Remember, everyone, self-care is important. So make your mental health and physical health a priority. Do it every day and do it first. With that being said, I'm out. Vince,
Peace,
peace, brother.
peace and love.
Yes, sir. Until next time.